Hello viewers, SuperGT here once again. Thank you for joining me for another video. This one is of the recent FIA race at Maggiore, and much like the previous race at Fuji, this one also went down to the wire. It was a really interesting race throughout, right to the very end, the final straight. We're first off looking at qualifying, and this is kind of just demonstrates just how difficult this track was for qualifying because it's such a short circuit. 44-second lap time, or 43 if you're really quick. So with 20 people on the circuit, it did get rather crowded at times, so it's quite tricky to get out the bloody way when some people are coming through on their flying laps. But here is my flying lap as we go into turn 1. So this is one of the shorter configurations, or is the shortest configuration that you can do around the Maggiore Autodrome. And of course we're driving for Ferrari. This is the manufacturer we chose for this manufacturer season. And our results so far have been actually very good. Over 2,000 points in both of the races we've done so far. And that's actually my best 2 totals I've ever had in FIA races. So we've been doing well, coupled of course with the direct drive wheel by Fanatec, which has actually been really helping as well. Just having that extra feel really does help. Across the line here we go with a bit of slipstream assist. Over the line, 44.2. That's a very good lap time. Very low 44s. That put me in 7th, currently 8th. So just a quarter of a second away from pole position. I went round for another lap and it was consistent, but it was slightly slower. Another 44.2. And you can just look here and see how close it was. Pole position in the Ferrari as well, 43.9. I'm a quarter of a second down in 10th. And pretty much everyone there is within just a few tenths of a second away from pole position. So it just showed how close it was. Eventually I finished 11th, and you can see just how close it is. Half a second between first and last. Half a second. It is ridiculously close. If I had just gone 1/10 quicker, I'll be around about 5th or 6th on the grid. But here we go then. Let's begin this race, and much like the Fuji one, like I said earlier, this one went down to the wire, and it was a really interesting race throughout. And I must say that this new format for the FIA season for these races is much better with these longer races. So the problem at the start here was starting on the corner, and of course this was a big issue for the 2 people you see there. One guy was on the pit lane wall. Sparks here also did the same, and he lost loads of momentum. He goes defensive. Can we get another position very quickly at the start of the race? So we gained 1 already. Can we get another one here past Sparks? Ferrari versus Mercedes through turn 1, and on the exit I'm just going to get the momentum on the way out and got up to 9th. So there was a bit of an issue there because anyone who started from about 9th place backwards was starting on a corner, and we all know that that makes it so much trickier to start. If you're starting on a straight line, you can just smash the power and you can just move away. But when you're starting on this corner here, well, we saw it just there. 2 people eventually ended up spinning into the wall on the right hand side because it's so tricky to get the power down as quickly as you'd like. So we're going to fast forward here because, you know, it's a long race. It's nearly half an hour long, or well over 20 minutes. So by lap 6, still in 9th place, gaining on the 2 ahead, still with the Mercedes of Sparks in tow. So he didn't really go for a move. I'm not sure if he wasn't quick enough or he just wanted to sit behind and fuel save. That's a very viable option as well. Fuel saving is necessary in this race, as I will be, well, you do have to stop. You have to stop basically and go on to the hard tyre at some point during the race. So at the final corner, couldn't quite get the traction down there as easy as I would have liked, and that was probably one of my bigger weaknesses in this race. And that put me in a bad position always going into this first corner here, which is probably the best overtaking opportunity on this lap. It's the slowest corner. Well, it's actually the second slowest corner, but it's got the biggest braking zone. So it's always a good place to go for an overtaking route. So up here behind RC Snake and the McLaren, we've got James there in 7th driving the Mercedes. So with a 30 lap race, you're really trying to settle down into a rhythm, but also you really do have to manage your tyres and your fuel, and that became quite difficult, as you can see through this corner here, having to keep it in 2nd gear when normally I might go down into 1st. And this car, the problem with it is the tyre wear on the rear tyres, so I have my brake bias all the way to the front, and this is a problem with a lot of the MR cars the fact that you suffer from tyre wear later on in your stints. And the main place that is going to affect me on this lap is coming out the hairpin that we just came out of, and coming out of the other hairpin at the end of the lap. So it's just traction basically. You struggle for traction, you struggle for grip coming out of slow corners, and that is where it's mainly going to affect you. So the smoother you can drive, the longer you can keep fresher tyres, and it's going to help you longer into the race. Okay, up behind RC Snake, and you see through here, he just gets a slightly better entry and therefore a better exit. Grazing the grass, very risky because there is a massive wall there, so you can easily punt yourself into the realm unassisted if you just drive a little bit too wide into that wall. So at the moment here, our Ferrari teammates in the lead, and we're going to progress through to lap 10. So we're going to plan to go for our first of 2 pit stops here. In the Ferrari, again, with this tyre wear, it really is an issue. And around here, the pit lane is actually very short. You only lose about 4 seconds, or 4 or 5 seconds. If you don't fuel, you only lose about 4 seconds. And given that you could easily lose half a second a lap by having worn tyres, you can actually gain that time back quite quickly. So stop duration was 4 seconds there. So we leave the pit lane, and just as that Mercedes goes past, it was a really dodgy exit to the pit lane, must be said. And luckily on this occasion, didn't get claimed to the realm. So down into 13th. But again, this is one of those races where it's just going to be all over the place, where different people, different strategies, different tyres. You don't quite know who's on what tyre. You don't know who's fuel saving and who isn't. So you kind of just have to drive your own race in many respects. And you see as we just pan behind there, there is quite a big group right behind us. But we are on the fresh tyres, on the medium tyres. And the other option being the hard. So I am on the better tyre at the moment. So right now I should be okay. RC Snake goes into the pits. So even if someone goes into the pits right in front of you, they're only going to lose a few seconds, and therefore they're only going to be a few seconds behind you by the time you come out. See, look at that. RC Snake actually still comes out ahead. The Mercedes just completely obliterates him through the corner. I'm going to say thank you very much for that. So I'm going to sign this kid up to R4M. He's clearly got what it takes, and I've just completely benefited out of that. Always good to get a nice free double overtake when you put in no extra effort. Normally in these kind of races, because it's so close, it's so finely judged, every sort of action you take, when you try to overtake someone, you normally have to, burn more fuel, use up your tyres a bit more. But there, just easily glide past them without any extra effort. So it's always good to have that. Not that you want necessarily all your opponents to crash. You do, really, you do. But sometimes it happens, and you just got to take advantage. So we move up into 9th. We started 11th. So at the moment we've got a net gain, and RC Snake's dropped out of my slipstream range. That's always good as well, because if someone's right behind you, you're assisting them basically by giving them slipstream. You're sucking them along and you're helping them out, which is something that every man strives for. But on this occasion, RC Snake isn't quite close enough, and therefore he can't fuel save behind me. He can't get free fuel by being in the slipstream. So people pitting all the time, staying in 9th on this occasion, so you do need to be within 4 seconds of someone when they pit to actually jump ahead of them. On this occasion I wasn't, but looking at the map there was quite a big group ahead, and by lap 15, so we are halfway into the race now, I was beginning to catch up with this group. And this is one of the things we spoke about earlier. You don't quite know which strategy people are on. Some people might be on the end of their tyre life, so they're going to come in soon. Some people are on the harder tyre, some people are fuel saving a lot more. So it's hard to judge exactly what people are doing, as 8th place dives into the pit lane there. So at this point here, halfway into the race, we've done exactly half the race now. In 7th place with a 3-way group in front of us fighting for 4th. And it'd be nice if I can just get onto the back of this group. I am within slipstream range now. 1.25 seconds behind, so I am just picking up some faint slipstream here, and the main aim really just to get a little bit closer, just to make sure that slipstream is a little bit stronger, and of course just to stay away from RC Snake, who is in behind in 8th in the McLaren. So this Mercedes at the front of this pack seems to be holding this group up. We have Mr. Parada GT there, and he's actually the top driver for Ferrari this season. So I jumped into Ferrari this season. I was hoping to try and be number 1, but this Parada guy is really, really fast. And he's having very, very good results. So it's going to be actually really hard to beat him. So the Mercedes drives very wide. The Ferrari up the inside then. So you've got a nice battle going on. So I can't quite, well hopefully I can, but it's going to be difficult just to try to follow that Ferrari through. The Ferrari seems to be going for a one stop. I've struggled to go for that one stop. I'm trying, well I'm definitely going to do a two stop as the Mercedes goes very wide. I'm going to send up the inside. The invitation was there and I responded with a positive result, going up the inside, up into 6th place, into our usual position, as the Mercedes actually dives into the pit lane. You see the gap there from our group to the group behind, so still about 2 seconds. So that's good that we're not helping them out still. BMW looking for the exit speed here, doesn't quite get it, but he can tuck in behind. So I'm quite happy here to kind of sit behind, especially now that we're on lap 18, we're on the 8th lap of these tyres. So it's pretty much a case of doing 10 laps on each set of tyres. I know the hard tyre can technically go longer, but it is a slower tyre. So you don't actually want to spend too much time on it. I think on this occasion just doing 10, 10, 10, medium, medium, hard is actually a fair strategy to do. As we come through here and cross the line to begin lap number 19. A bit of fuel saving as well, going into lean setting 2. As we build up towards the final third of this race. Sitting in 6th place, which is not too bad. And looking at the map, there's about 3 cars immediately behind. And then a nice big gap back to about 10th place. So, should I pit now, I would actually come out ahead of that big group for about 10th. Which wouldn't be too bad. Bottle Sparks goes into the pits, and I'm going to follow him in. And shift over to the hard tyre to begin our final stint. So we're going to go onto the hard tyre a lap early and put in a bit more fuel. We should have to refuel there. 40%, so it's going to be actually quite tough to get through to the end. So this is going to require a bit of fuel saving. But I just wanted to make sure I get out ahead of this group, because you never know. On the harder tyre, I could realistically defend against people on medium tyres and stay ahead until the end of the race. It's actually a difficult track to overtake around. It's actually very easy to defend around here. Just covering the right places, and you'll see that throughout the course of this final stint, which is going to get ever more intense and pressurised as we get towards the end of the race. So 10 laps to go at this point here, as we come out of the final corner and begin lap number 21, and that signifies 10 laps to go. So Creaser behind in the Corvette, sitting in 7th. This is a good position, no more pit stops to do, so it's a straight race for me from here to the end. Could possibly gain some if someone ahead has to pit, but I'm not relying on that. Unfortunately, at this occasion here, we receive a big contact from the Corvette, and it sends us spinning. Luckily, just correct it in time, and just lose 2 positions on this occasion. Down into 9th, we have the Jaguar for company now, as we head up towards the uphill corner. Very difficult this. You have to brake at the start of the curve on the right-hand side. Get very close to the orange bollard, or not bollard, it's sausage curve, I think is the right term, without touching it. If you start touching that, you start flying everywhere, so you don't really want to abuse the sausage. That is not recommended. So, position 9, 9 laps to go, and we're going to try to keep in the tow of these 2 guys ahead. And again, it's hard to tell exactly what tyres they are on. I'm on the hard tyre, of course, but the hard tyre is only about half a second slower per lap around this track. It is a short track, of course, so that does change that. So if it's a normal length track, it would be like a second or more slower. But being only half a second slower is not too much of a gap. And if you can just stay in the slipstream, then it's possible that you can gain that half a second back just by getting pulled along. So you're going to try to keep it nice and smooth through here, on the power nice and early, just to try to keep within that slipstream range. We do have RC Snake going into the pit lane now. We're going to recover and rejoin ahead of him. We're in 8th place at the moment, so yes, we have gained a position there. So RC Snake pitting a little bit late in the McLaren. A little bit wide here, courtesy of the slipstream, so you do have to readjust your braking points when you're in that slipstream. But you can see, as we look behind, there is an ominous looking group as actually Creaser and Bottle Sparks ahead begin just to edge away. So when they've got that tyre advantage, which I'm guessing they have got, then it's going to be very difficult to keep with them. But at this point here, we've got James and the Mercedes right behind. and well, we have him for company and a group of about 4 or 5 people as well. Sparks into the pit lane. Let's see where he comes out. So I'm into 7th, but we're going to look on the right hand side here as he exits the pit lane. There he is. Are we going to get this position? Braking just on that white line that goes across the circuit. Up the inside we go. Sparks on the outside, and we're just going to have to give him space through the corner, and then it's a battle of the Mercedes just behind. So now, almost like F1, we have a Ferrari at the front pressurised by 2 Mercedes. So from here to the end, it's going to be a tough race trying to hold these 2 off. Into fuel setting 2. I have to save fuel from here to the end of the race. This is the tricky nature of this race here. I have 2 Mercedes breathing down my neck, trying to do everything they can to get past, and then I've got a fuel save as well. So lots of management to do. You see, look how close he is, right on my tail, flipping over to the radar just to see exactly where he is. And we're going to try to take the racing line. A bit of contact between the 2 of us. Crucial thing here is don't overshoot, hit the apex, park it on the apex, and then accelerate away, just to make sure they can't get on the inside. So James actually getting a really good launch off that corner. So it's going to be a drag race between the 2 of us down this straight into the sweeping S's. I'm on the left hand side, which is the good side to be as we come up to this uphill braking point into the left hander. Sparks looking for the inside, again pincer attacked. Toto Wolff administering a bit of pincer movement on the lone Ferrari here. But we've just stayed ahead, doing just enough in defence to stay ahead at this point. So Sparks not deciding to go for a complete full send. So we stay in 7th, but it's going to get tougher and tougher as this race goes on, as I need to save more and more fuel, and especially as the tyres go off. I suppose that's the problem we all have though. As my tyres go off, then, well, everyone else's tyres are going off at the same time as well. So it's going to be very tough here. I don't have benefit of the slipstream ahead. You can see that Creaser and Bottle Sparks have got a nice gap on me now, 3.5 seconds. There's no chance really of catching up with them. Pretty much now a case of just defending and keeping the position that we've got from here to the end of the race. At the end of this lap, there's going to be 4 laps to go, 27, 28, 29, 30. So don't forget that. You still have 4 laps to go. So you might look at 27 out of 30 and think, well, that's 30 minus 27. Well, there's only 3 laps, but no, you have to do lap 30 as well. So 4 laps to go. Easy mathematical error to make, but don't make that error. Otherwise you'll run out of fuel a lap early. And that is not recommended. I would personally not recommend running out of fuel a lap early. It might make you look a bit silly. As we come down towards the sweeping S's once again. So doing an okay job here of keeping these guys behind, but the fuel is becoming an ever more increasing problem as we come up through the sweeping left-hander. Doing a good job of keeping the car under control. So it is a tricky car to control, especially for this corner here. It just really wanted to understeer, and as soon as you shifted into 1st gear, it just really oversteered. So I was keeping it in 2nd gear and just keeping a tiny amount of throttle, which kept it more settled. So Sparks, going for that move, I'm just going to go all the way to the left-hand side, completely defensive. I've learned a lot of lessons in defence by racing against David Perel. So sometimes I was opening up the inside too early. And on this occasion, just stay to the left as long as I possibly could, and then move down to the right to take the racing line as late as I possibly can. So staying in 7th, and again, he's going up for that move. I'm just going to cover the inside to force him to the right-hand side. There's no way around the outside. It's absolutely impossible, really, unless I completely mess it up, which I haven't done, thankfully. So after this lap, 2 to go. You see the pack there, waiting. They're not right on us, but if we were to make any mistake, then they are surely going to capitalise on it. So there's a big amount of pressure on this, as I do have to keep this guy right behind, but also make sure I don't make a glaring error and lose loads of positions. So again, going defensive into turn 1, keep the inside line, and that forces Sparks to the outside. Again, he's right on my tail, so I'm going to have to go to the left-hand side as we go through the S's. As we sweep through there, again, look at that, covering the inside. He actually goes to the inside. I've kind of gone half defensive on the middle of the circuit. He didn't fancy the move. You have to be very, very committed and get your timing dead right on those brakes to make sure you don't make any contact. Yellow flag is Creaser, and he's spun out somehow going through that final corner. He's ended up in the pit lane. So we're up in 6th place, the magical position of 6th. Can we hold off Sparks for one more lap? He's gone to the inside. Is he quite going to make that move? He's not quite there. Look how close it is between the 2 of us. Barely millimetres between the rear bumper of the Ferrari and the front bumper of that Mercedes. So half a lap to go, lap 30 of 30, this is it. I'm running out of fuel, I've got pressure from behind, can I hold him off for half a lap? Again to the inside, we've practiced that defensive move so many times, and again having to go defensive into this corner, actually for the first time on this occasion. But as we come through here, I'm hearing faint murmurs of a dying engine. As we come out of the final turn, I've run out of fuel, I receive a bit of a boost from behind, but sadly it's going to be another case of a drastic bottle from Super GT.
Sake. Sorry guys.
So there we go, another disappointing end. A big bottle. What else would you expect? It's a Super GT video. But what I would say is that was an absolutely fantastic race. It wasn't an ideal ending. I lost 5 positions in the last 200 metres of the race and went down to 11th. But it was a very nice race. There was lots of respect out there. I covered the inside. The guy didn't punt me wide, didn't smash me off. He raced properly as well. And unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough. I should have maybe fueled a little bit more at that pit stop, but ultimately we're trying to run a fine line just to get the best result, but I'm just crossing that line a little bit too often. But there we go, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video, and I shall see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.